It's been a rough year for Canadian economy with this uncertainty over trade. Of course, the worst of the damage was avoided, although big levies remain.
Just last week, on February 27th, 2026, Statistics Canada released the final GDP report for the year. And the number that came out? Canada's economy contracted in Q4 of 2025, not just slowed down, contracted. The full-year GDP growth came in at just 1.7%, the slowest pace since 2020, the year of the pandemic. And right at the same time, the Bank for International Settlements published a report confirming something that a lot of Canadians had already been feeling in their bones. Canada now has the largest home price decline of any advanced economy in the world. Bigger than Germany, bigger than Sweden, even bigger than China. So today, we're going to break down exactly what's happening, what the numbers actually say, and what this means for your home equity right now in 2026. Let's start with the economy, because that's really the engine behind everything else. When GDP slows down, people earn less, spend less, and the whole machine loses power. And Canada's machine has been losing power for a while now. According to Statistics Canada, real GDP declined 0.2% in the fourth quarter of 2025. That came right after the economy had actually grown 0.6% in Q3, so it was 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. The main reason? Businesses were drawing down their inventories rather than producing new goods. That's a sign that companies are not confident enough in demand to keep the shelves stocked. And Oxford Economics senior economist Michael Davenport said in a note released the same day that Canada started 2026 on, quote, shaky footing. He added that soft economic momentum will persist in the near term due to U.S. tariffs and a shrinking population. Recession risks, he said, remain elevated. BMO's chief economist, Doug Porter, was even blunter. He said the Bank of Canada's own forecast for a rebound could be, and I'm quoting here, a stretch. And until trade uncertainty clears, the economy will likely continue to struggle. Now, the Bank of Canada held its policy rate at 2.25% back in January. Rates came down from a peak of 5%. That's 7 consecutive cuts over about 18 months. But even with all that easing, the economy is still sputtering. The CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, put out a forecast in January 2026 stating that real GDP growth for the year will be just 0.7%. They called it one of the weakest years in recent decades outside of an actual recession. And here's the thing that really puts this in perspective. The FCC, Farm Credit Canada, ran their own numbers and said GDP growth could slow to about 1.2% in 2026. They noted that household debt servicing already absorbs more than 14% of disposable income. And for the households renewing 5-year fixed mortgages in 2026, their monthly payments are expected to jump by nearly 20% compared to what they were paying before. That's not a small thing. That's real money coming out of real pockets every single month. Here's the headline number that nobody expected to see in a report from an international banking institution. According to the Bank for International Settlements, Canada has experienced the largest home price decline of any advanced economy from early 2022 to mid-2025. 18% down in nominal terms, and the UK went up 9%. Carl Shimada, chief market analyst at Corpay, put it plainly, Canada is still in the grip of one of the deepest housing downturns in the advanced world. Now let's look at where things actually stand right now. In January 2026, according to CREA's MLS data, national home sales slid 5.8% just from December. Year over year, actual sales were down 16.2%. The national benchmark home price came in at $658,300, down 4.9% from a year earlier. That was the 8th consecutive month of declining benchmark prices. In Toronto, it got worse. The average GTA home price dropped to $973,000 in January 2026. That's a 6.5% drop year over year, and the first time since 2021 that prices fell below $1 million. Sales in the GTA plunged 19.3% year over year. Royal LePage is now forecasting GTA prices to fall another 4.5% through 2026. In British Columbia, average home prices fell to $924,239 in January, down 1.9% year over year. Sales in BC dropped 22.9% compared to January of last year. And the condo market is in a different category altogether. In Toronto and Hamilton combined, new condo sales in 2025 totaled only 1,599 units. That's the lowest number since 1991, down 91% from the decade's average. As of December 2025, benchmark GTA condo prices had fallen back almost to where they were before the pandemic, after 9 straight quarters of declining values. TD economist Rishi Sandhi said in a note released recently that Canada's housing has been subdued since last August, and with all the headwinds in place, economic worries, weak population growth, sluggish job market, he's calling 2026 another subpar year for housing. Here's the connection that a lot of people miss when they hear these big economic numbers. Home equity is the core of middle-class wealth in Canada. It's how families pass money down, how people fund retirements, how homeowners feel secure enough to spend money at local businesses. When home values go up, people feel richer and they spend more. When home values go down, people pull back. Economists call it the wealth effect, and CIBC's economists cited Bank of Canada research saying that for every dollar increase in housing prices, household consumption may rise by about 5.7%. Going the other direction, declines hit even harder. CIBC economists went so far as to say that Canada's housing market has completely collapsed and argued that falling prices are now dragging down construction activity, consumer spending, and overall growth, especially in Ontario and British Columbia. Statistics Canada confirmed this is showing up in wealth distribution data. In the second quarter of 2025, real estate values declined 1.0% on a national basis. The households with the least wealth, the bottom 40% of Canadians, were the ones most exposed to housing, and because they were more engaged in the real estate market during a period of falling values, their wealth gap relative to the top 20% actually widened. For the average homeowner, the math is painful. If you bought near the peak in early 2022, national prices are now down roughly 19% from that peak, according to BMO economist Robert Kavchich. That's equity that was on paper, and now it's gone. New listings, meanwhile, are climbing. In January 2026, new listings rose 7.3% month over month across Canada. In Ontario, supply conditions have flipped toward buyers. The sales to new listings ratio in Ontario dropped to just 32% in January, signaling a heavy buyer's market in a province that used to be one of the most competitive anywhere in the country. Mortgage debt in Canada hit $1.95 trillion in Q4 of 2025. That's up 2.6% from 2024. So Canadians are carrying more debt on homes that are worth less in an economy that's barely growing. So where does all of this go from here? The CMHC forecast says housing starts will continue to slow in 2026, with an even more significant decline expected in 2027 and 2028. In the GTA, only 269 new homes sold in January 2026, according to the Building Industry and Land Development Association. That's the signal that developers are pulling back. CIBC found that actual housing starts in the Greater Toronto Area are roughly 50% lower than the official figures suggest because of how completions are counted. Official data is lagging reality on the ground. The FCHC noted that many households renewing their mortgages in 2026 will be doing so at higher rates than when they first signed. Population growth is expected to be flat this year, the first time since 1946 that Canada saw a population shrink was in Q3 of 2025. Fewer people means less housing demand. For investors and people watching from the sidelines, Quebec and Saskatchewan are the outliers. Quebec's benchmark price was still up 7.1% year over year in January 2026. Saskatchewan grew 5%. But those markets are a different story than what's happening in Canada's two largest cities. BMO's Doug Porter said it clearly. Until the trade uncertainty with the U.S. clears up and until businesses and households feel confident again, the economy is going to keep struggling. And when the economy struggles, home equity pays the price.